You're watching Training Camp with Adam Marburger, exclusively on CBT News.
Welcome to Training Camp, exclusively on CBT News. I'm your host, Adam Marburger. I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a black belt in F&I. This show's designed to help automotive professionals enhance their F&I operations and ultimately achieve their black belt in the F&I space. Today, I've got a very special guest. I've got Chris Martinez with Mercedes-Benz of San Antonio. Chris, welcome to Training Camp.
Thank you, Adam. I'm glad you have me on, man.
Yeah, well, it's always nice chatting with you. Let's just get right to it. I see month after month, you guys continue to grow every single month, it looks like, in San Antonio. Tell me a little bit, what has changed as of recent, opposed to maybe a year ago? What's changed at your store that you guys continue to level up every month?
I think a big part of it is just training, the discipline of just making sure that we're sticking to a process. And when you have that type of accountability, there's no way not to win or continue to keep growing.
You said something, you used a word that a lot of people don't like. You said accountability a minute ago. So how do you get your team as a leader to embrace accountability in your store? Because it's very uncomfortable for those to be held accountable. How do you get your team to embrace accountability?
For me, I'm not the type of person that, tries to browbeat anybody. I'm the type of person that just kind of, we have fun, and when we, call each other out, and even for me, if I'm not following certain protocol, I'd be happy to call myself out and try to make it more of an environment where we're pushing each other to get better. You know what I'm saying? It's not something where I'm out there, yelling at someone or doing anything like that. It's more like, hey, you know what? This guy, he's acting up, or this girl's acting up. She's not following the process. Look, everybody, look at what's happening right here. So when we make it fun, it's easier to call people out. Nobody wants to be called out, right? So it's kind of one of those things.
So you said process, and I want to talk about process for a minute. So process isn't really the sexiest thing to talk about or train on. However, it's absolutely critical. If you look at the super achievers, you notice a common theme, and those follow process and they're committed to personal development. So when you find somebody in your store, let's just use the F&I department for an example. See, if you're sitting at the desk and one of your salespeople came up to you and said, hey, Chris, I want to give Mr. and Mrs. customer numbers. They don't want to drive the vehicle. They've driven an Escalade before. What do you say, right? You say, wait a minute, get them to drive before we present figures.
100%.
But why is it acceptable? And I'm speaking broad terms here, Chris, because you've been around. I'm not talking about your store right now specifically. But why is it acceptable for an F&I manager to skip a menu presentation? Why is it acceptable for an F&I person to maybe not do an early TO or get involved early? Why is that?
Well, I think it's part of it is people either get the path of least resistance, right? Where people are just not. They're saying, oh, well, it's busy right now, so I shouldn't, do like the interview, or I shouldn't, I'm just trying to get them in and out. And they start making up excuses instead of just sticking to the process, right? Same thing what happens, like you said, it happens here from time to time where salespeople don't get the test drive, and we have to get the manager to either go out there, talk to them, or we get another salesperson that knows how to get them to get on a test drive, and we TO them, and half is better than no deal. So
amen to that. Half of something's better than all or nothing. Said the guy, I don't know if Gordon Carver's watching this, my first 3 months in sales, I heard it over and over. Half of something is better than all or nothing. I'm going to TO every one of your deals. So
100%.
So, I think we could both agree that processes should never be skipped. We should follow that process. Let me ask you this. As a GM of a very successful store, I'm sure you've got a lot of individuals on your sales floor that want to get into management. You got folks that probably want to be an F&I. What do you look for when you're hiring somebody for that F&I chair? What are you looking for out of that individual?
I'm trying to look to see do they have those untrainables, right? Do they are they disciplined enough where they are consistent? And a lot of people have those can do those spurts of consistency where they're 2 weeks in and they're doing the same thing day in day out, but then by the third week they kind of fizzle out and they just don't have that same intensity they had day one, right? And the ones that I look for are the people that can stay consistent and throughout the whole tenure that they've been with me, right? And the ones that show consistency of not only just process, but how about just coming and work on time, being a team player, things you don't even have to ask them to do, and they're doing it. And those are the people that generally rise up, right? The people that team players, you never have to ask this person. They come in early, show up late, or stay late, and you never have to like tell them to follow a process and or tell her to follow a process, and they're just executing all the way around.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. So I'm gonna change gears here just a little bit. So a lot of hot topics right now in F&I. One of those is speed of transaction, right? We know customers do not want to wait an hour, 90 minutes, or 2 hours to get into the F&I office, all right? What is your thought process on speed of transaction? Like, as the GM of your store, what is your standard for time it takes after that consumer says, hey, I want to buy this vehicle, let's write it up, to get into the F&I office? What is your thought process on that?
So I'm all about speed, right? Because the less time the customer has to sit around and wait is the better for you as a dealer and individual, because then you can they're still in the ether and you have an opportunity to sell them products on the vehicle that they're trying to purchase, right? For example, we started using a company called SelectFi to help us with our pencils, right? So now where maybe you give a customer a pencil or a write-up, you give them a standard rate 9.99 as a pencil, right? Now we do with soft pull technology and all of the banks that we have, we can give them real estimates on which banks are more likely to approve them, right? So our first pencil now consists of a pre-qual presentation where now I know Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all these different banks, Global Lending, any of our special finance banks, they're all programmed where now my pencil has 5 different options that a bank's more likely to approve them. And so now when when the customer accepts the pencil, instead of waiting, to shotgun or, as a finance manager trying to figure out which way it's going to go, we already know which bank the customer selected, and we just shoot it over there and it's approved. And now you talk about time to get into finance has already been reduced drastically.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, this is a perfect segue then to talk about, years ago, F&I people would kind of sit back in their office, kind of wait for deals to be brought to them. As a GM, what is your mindset on having the F&I person out on the showroom floor or sitting at the desk? Is that forbidden, or is that welcome in your store to have an F&I involved with the sales manager to kind of help each other work that transaction?
No, it's encouraged highly. I want to make sure the quicker we can get finance managers involved, the more likely they are to get product in the deal. So it's no longer you're going in to meet the big bad wolf. You've already talked to that person. They've been on the showroom, and now they look like you and me now. They're not somebody in this back office that I'm going to talk to, or somebody in the box, right? Like they've already been out here. They said hello and super nice, and you've already broken the ice, and now you can get involved and more likely translate into penetration in the back end.
Yeah, so I would assume that there's really no division between your sales desk and F&I. It seems like you guys are kind of rowing in the same direction, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so this show, it's titled Training Camp for a reason. And here I believe that fights are not won in the ring. I don't think fights are won in the cage. I think fights are won in that 12 weeks leading up to that, where we did the work with the cardio, the weight cut, the diet, the lack of social life. So let's talk about training camp with you for a minute. I know you're big into personal development. I know you're up early in the morning. I know you've got it going on. And we know that super achievers have a kind of common theme, right? I mean, we got structured morning routines. So share, if you could give any advice to other dealers, GMs, on some of the things that you're doing in your store that encourage personal growth, that would be amazing if you could share that, Chris.
So I'm all about personal growth, right? Trying to get better. And I think that, when you make it part of your culture where everybody's trying to get better, it just makes it easier for that accountability piece, right? For example, like, I had this meeting the other day and I'm talking to my team and I'm telling them, hey, just like, some of us that are overweight or some of us that need to do better, around our waist, everybody knows the formula, right? Mm-hmm. You eat better, you do exercise. And if you do that consistently for the next 90 days, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And everybody will raise their hand and say, yep, if I did that, I would lose, 5-10 pounds, right? So just imagine if you stayed consistent every day, you made your phone calls, you did your TOs, you did your walkarounds, you did all of the things that we ask, you do the guest interview. Imagine if you did that every day for the 90 days, what would happen?
Right.
Would you sell less? Would you sell more? What would happen, right? And everybody inherently says the same thing. Yeah, we would sell more. So then why is it that people, for whatever reason, can't stay consistent, right? Yeah. And so when you start beating that message every day, it doesn't change. My message is the same every day. I wake up, I get to the office, I send out my emails to everybody. I have meetings every morning, I have meetings in the afternoon. And if you sat in those meetings all the time, it'd be the same message every day. And we're talking about it. And something kind of happens when you stay consistent with those same message, everybody just starts kind of just holding themselves a little bit higher. They're like, you know what? I want to be a professional. I'm not trying to be this order taker. I'm not trying to be this person that doesn't want to win. I'm looking at my peers. I'm looking at everybody. I want to win. And, if you can stay consistent like that day in, day out, everybody we're just working a little bit differently.
Amen to that. Consistency, consistency, consistency. I love it. I love it. So I got one final question as we wrap up this conversation today. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot real quick, Chris. So what makes your dealership, Mercedes-Benz of San Antonio, stand out from the competition? What makes you guys special? If you could just give me your elevator pitch on what makes you guys you.
I think it's the people, right? It always comes down to the people. And we do everything we can to make sure that we are treating not only our customers right, but the employees. And the more you make it, you foster that type of environment where everybody understands that it's all about the relationship. It's not transactional, it's relational. Mm-hmm. The more likely everyone's going to come in with a positive attitude, smiling, and we're coming in here and just making a difference. And our people are the difference makers for sure.
Love that. I love hearing that. Chris, I want to sincerely thank you for spending some time with me. It's been an honor and a privilege chatting with you today, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. And I really, really appreciate you, Chris. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to Training Camp exclusively on CBT News. Remember this, if nothing changes, nothing changes. We must take action in our stores and be willing to invest into training. See, training's not something that we did. It's something that we must do, and we must do it on a never-ending basis. Remember this, fights are not won in the ring. They're won in training camp. We must commit to our training camp, and together we'll grow to the next level. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you real soon.